Aston Villa are back in the UEFA Champions League. What an incredible journey. Not too long ago, they were playing in the Championship, the second tier of English football. Now they're going to be fighting for European glory. Today, I want to talk a little bit about Villa's history, how they dropped down to the Championship, and then they rise from there all the way back to the European spots. Aston Villa are a club with massive history. They've been the champion of England 7 times. They've already won the UEFA Champions League in the past. They've won the FA Cup 7 times and they've won the League Cup 5 times. However, their last major honour came in the 95-96 season when they won the League Cup. They'd actually won 2 in a row, so that was quite a good period for the club. But it feels like a long time since Aston Villa were at the peak of their powers in the Premier League. They did have a good stint, 3 6th place finishes in a row from the 07-08 to the 09-10 season. However, there was a lot of problems with the ownership at the club in this time. A lack of investment during this period saw Martin O'Neill, who had guided them to those 6th place finishes, leave the club just a few days before the start of a new season. Club stars at the time, Gareth Barry, Ashley Young and James Milner, all departed in the summer, and O'Neill said enough is enough. After some great performances in the last 3 seasons, if we can't even keep a hold of our star players or invest in new ones, I'm not going to stick around. And this is where things really went downhill for Aston Villa. From this point, they consistently finished in the bottom half of the Premier League, leading all the way to the 15-16 season where they were relegated, finishing 20th. For Villa fans, this probably didn't come as much as a surprise. That lack of investment and selling of star players continued. They sold Benteke, they sold Fabian Delph and many others throughout this period. Although the season before they got relegated, they did even make it all the way to the FA Cup final. It was a 4-0 victory for Arsenal, but that could have been the start of a resurgence for Villa. Really wasn't to be the case. And after getting relegated to the Championship, things didn't start to look up straight away under Steve Bruce, a manager which I'm sure most Villa fans have a lot of hate for. Let me know what you think about Bruce in the comments. I'm excited to read this. They actually finished 13th, which is really poor for a team that's just been relegated. You see in the season that's just gone, Leicester and Southampton both got promoted, and Leeds, who were also relegated, managed to get to the playoff final. So usually teams who come down bounce straight back up or at least finish in the playoff spots. But after such a poor performance in the Championship with Bruce and Villa, there was a lot of questions around administration. What's going to happen with the funds? Can we survive in the Championship for a long time? The next season, they did manage to finish in the top 6, made it all the way to the playoff final, only to be beaten by Fulham in said final. So then those questions got even louder. Parachute payments are going out soon, and they were really in need of some investment. That investment then came from current owners NSWE Group. They purchased a 55% stake of the club, so the majority ownership, they were in charge of decisions. And in their first season at Villa, they got them promoted back to the Premier League. It was another playoff journey. They actually managed to win the final this time though, against Derby County, who themselves had a pretty tough run in after this, ending up dropping down to League One, but that's one for a different day. At the end of that season, NSWE Group then purchased the remainder of the Aston Villa shares, meaning that they now own the entire club, a move which I'm sure Villa fans welcome given the previous ownership's awful tenure. Time in the Premier League did not come smoothly though. Big ambitions, but after a poor start with Dean Smith, who only won 7 of Villa's first 11 games, he was dismissed. They then brought in Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard managed to keep them in the Premier League that season and made some very smart signings and was probably the first glimmer of hope at Aston Villa in a little while. I asked Villa fans for your opinions on Steve Bruce a minute ago. I want to know what you think about Gerrard, because from my point of view as a Leeds fan, it looked very bipolar. It looked very 50-50. Sometimes there were some fantastic performances, but obviously in his second season at the club, he had a very poor start as well and was fired to bring in the man behind the masterclass that has been Aston Villa in the last 2 seasons. That is Unai Emery. Unai Emery did have previous Premier League experience with Arsenal. I think that was a run which was never going to go well. Straight after Arsene Wenger, in a very tough period for Arsenal. If you compare their squad then to their squad now, it is a million miles apart. Emery, a previous 4-time Europa League winner, a serial winner. He'd won it 3 times with Sevilla, 3 in a row, 13-14, 14-15, 15-16. went to Arsenal, then ended up at Villarreal, a much smaller club than Sevilla. He ended up winning the Europa League with Villarreal, the biggest achievement in that club's history, earning him the move to Aston Villa. Many would say that this is the smartest signing Aston Villa have made. They did actually have to pay Villarreal £6 million to acquire Emery's services, but what a signing it has been. To put it into perspective, Gerrard won 12 of his 38 games in charge at Aston Villa. That's a win percentage of just 32%. Unai Emery has won 60 of his 113 games in charge at Aston Villa, a win percentage of 53. So going from 32 to 53 is worlds apart. And I think every fan in football can appreciate the job that Emery has done with that squad. And a lot of that as well is down to the secure new ownership. That new ownership came in 2018, and it made Aston Villa the fourth richest club in the Premier League, or the owners are the fourth richest owners in the Premier League. They brought them back from the Championship and have now brought them all the way to a fourth place finish. But apart from Unai Emery, how did they manage to do it? Their transfer business, in comparison to a lot of the other big six clubs, has been immaculate. The first transfer I want to talk about is Moussa Diaby, one of the most expensive signings at Villa. He cost them £50 million, a young, exciting winger that they picked up from Bayer Leverkusen. He's had 6 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League this season, but he's only started 65% of Villa's games. So taking that into account, that is a massively successful season. And his flair on the ball and his attacking presence is definitely something that has been a key factor in bringing Villa back to fourth in the Premier League. Pau Torres from Emery's former club Villarreal. When you saw Pau Torres playing in La Liga and in that Europa League final and campaign as a whole, you knew that he was a special centre-back. He's become one of the most consistent and reliable centre-backs in the Premier League. For £30 million, this is such a smart piece of business. And this is so smart from Emery as well, to go back to his former club and pick up their best defender, and for the ownership to have trust in him that he is going to work in the Premier League. It is good all round. Yuri Tielemans on a free transfer. So this one didn't always look so good. When he first joined from Leicester, there was a lot of, oh, is he a little bit overweight? Is he unfit? Can he bring back that Leicester form? But in the second half of this Premier League season, what a difference he has made. He has been that rock in the centre of the Aston Villa midfield. I imagine he's on quite a lot of money, but for a free transfer, great business. But it's not only the players coming in that have made a huge difference at Aston Villa. I think the arrival of Unai Emery has led to a massive amount of player development for some of the squad that were already there. First person I want to talk about, and the most obvious shout, is Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins had shown glimpses of being a brilliant striker previously, especially when he was in the Championship. He was really good. But in the season that Emery joined Villa, Watkins had 11 goals and 2 assists, which isn't particularly awful output from a pretty new Premier League striker. However, last season, so in Emery's first full season at the club, that jumped up to 15 goals and 6 assists, so a jump of 8 goal contributions. And then this season, Watkins has turned into a completely different beast, hitting 19 goals and 13 assists. So that's 11 more goal contributions than last season and 19 more than Emery's first season at the club. You cannot tell me that Unai Emery has not played a massive role in developing Ollie Watkins and turning him into the player he is today. He has added so much more to his game. Watkins has turned from just a semi-reliable goal scorer to a fantastic goal scorer, a target man up front, and has also added a lot of passing play and assists to his game. This Premier League season, he was the 4th highest goal scorer and had the most assists in the Premier League. Ollie Watkins actually has the same amount of goal contributions as Erling Haaland. Let that one sink in for a second. Erling Haaland is one of the most renowned strikers in the world. Ollie Watkins in the Premier League has the same amount of goal contributions. Development is off the charts. Another player who has come on massively, John McGinn. I think a lot of people just see McGinn as this gritty Premier League player who can get in and get dirty when it's needed to win a game. Since Emery came in, McGinn has managed to add a bit more attacking flair to his game. So his goal contributions in the 21-22 season was 7. In the 22-23 season, it was 4, whereas last season, in the 23-24 season, it was 10. That's the most goal contributions John McGinn has ever had in a Premier League season. He's a leader on the pitch. This is a crazy stat as well. McGinn, this season for Aston Villa, according to Transfer Market, has played centre midfield, centre attacking midfield, right midfield, left midfield, and centre defensive midfield for Aston Villa. I'm sure that Villa fans already love him, but I think he's a player that goes massively underappreciated to a lot of general Premier League or football fans. A lot of the time he's not doing anything special, he's just getting the job done, but he is a key component in taking Villa to where they are today, and I really don't think that that can be understated. A lot of teams that are bigger than Villa, that have a bit more pedigree in the league, could really do with a player like John McGinn. If you look at that Manchester United squad, he could definitely fit in there. If you look at the Tottenham team, he could definitely fit in there. I think John McGinn would probably get in Chelsea over Enzo Fernandez and half the players that are there, and he cost £100 million. Maybe a controversial take, let me know. Another player who has become one of the most exciting midfielders in the world under Unai Emery is Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz only cost Aston Villa £15 million, and he's now valued at, on Transfer Market, a whopping £70 million. This is huge for the club because this gives them the opportunity to either continue to develop him and make him even better and worth more money. Keeping a player like that on the books is important. But now if they are to sell Douglas Luiz and they need to reinvest in other areas of the squad, they're going to be picking up, what, 70, 80 million pounds for him? And I think a lot of teams would be after a player like Douglas Luiz. And with those players combined, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, Ollie Watkins, they've built a real spine to the squad. So those are the ones that have been developed. But then you think about the additions that they've brought in. Pau Torres, one of the most consistent centre-backs in the league. Emi Martinez in net, who has shown massive character, going off and winning the World Cup, starting every game for Aston Villa. That spine of the squad, I think, is the most important thing to Aston Villa. And none of them, they have become star players, but when they signed, none of those names were star names. Emi Martinez wasn't playing for Arsenal on a regular basis. Ollie Watkins had done well in the Championship with Villa, but apart from that, no Premier League experience. John McGinn, a player at the club who'd been there for a long, long time, but had never exactly set the world alight. And then Pau Torres, a fantastic signing from Unai Emery, who probably knew exactly what he could get from him and what to expect. There's a lot of other players I haven't mentioned there, but I think those are the key factors in what have brought Villa back to the top 4. A lot of people might say, well, is it all just money then? Is money the reason that Aston Villa have managed to get these players, keep these players, and get back to the position where they are? In the last 5 seasons, Villa have had a net spend of 326 million. This is the 7th highest in the Premier League, which for a team who not too long ago were in the Championship, I must admit, is quite a lot to spend. But then it's the 7th most, and they just finished at 4th in the league. If you look at how they've spent their money in comparison to Chelsea, in comparison to Manchester United, then it's just very, very smart signings and smart moves that have got them to the position they are today. The teams that have spent more than them are Manchester City, Newcastle, who have only recently run into a lot more money, so that came as a little bit of a surprise to me. Tottenham, Arsenal, Manchester United and Chelsea. Arsenal, Manchester United and Chelsea have all spent over £550 million. Obviously, Chelsea are probably hitting £1 billion. But I think that really paints a good picture on my last point of it's smart spending. They've spent £200 million less than Chelsea and Manchester United. And you would bet that Aston Villa are going to be finishing higher than them even next season in the Premier League. Villa fans, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the new ownership, on Emery, and tell me how excited you are to be back playing in the Champions League next year. I think it's well deserved. I've enjoyed the journey, and I'm really excited to see what happens with a lot of these young, exciting players next season. Please remember, if you're a football fan, become a fan of the channel. Hit like, hit subscribe. I appreciate every single person who subscribes to the channel. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.